Okay, hello and welcome to our talk, Forging Ahead, Migrating Enterprise Survey to Cloud. Today, we will take you through our journey of building a migration assistant for our most popular app, Enterprise Survey. We will show you the challenges we faced, the solutions we developed, and the lessons we learned along the way. First, we will start with short introduction. We are TNG Technology Consulting, a value-based consulting partnership focused on high-end information technology. We are an Atlassian solution partner since 2007 and also Atlassian marketplace partner. My name is Miroslava Kalibradova. I'm a computer engineer from Bulgaria, currently working as a software consultant at TNG.
Hi, I am Lina. I am a physicist, also working as a software consultant at TNG. And both of us, we are part of the Atlassian apps team at TNG, which maintains, develops, and also does some marketing for our apps for the Atlassian ecosystem.
So, we will start our talk with pointing to where our adventure started. And actually, our journey began with that we have multiplied data center apps by TNG. But as the future is clearly in the cloud, we knew we have to adapt and embrace the change. That's why we decided to developing cloud versions of our most popular data center apps. And we chose Forge as our platform from the very beginning. But after these cloud versions were ready, one piece of the puzzle was still missing, a migration assistant, to ensure that our customers could move to the cloud smoothly and transfer all the data they have from the DC to the cloud app. And that's actually when we decided to go on this adventure. And we started working with the Forge migration platform when it was released. And like any true adventure, this journey was filled with twists, challenges, and exciting discoveries. Today, we invite you to join us in this adventure, and through our story, the visuals, and everything we will share, you will experience this journey just as we did, step by step, challenge by challenge, and victory by victory. So, let's go.
So let's first have a look at our app and what it's actually doing. So as the name already implies, Multivote and Enterprise Survey is an app that comprises of two parts, Multivote and Survey. We'll focus on the later one because we are focusing on the survey migration. And Survey is a powerful tool with which you can create complex surveys to gather feedback or plan events. I mean, actually, you can use it for any problem that involves the collection of your customers, employees, your employees' opinions. It's very versatile. And it started on DC as all our apps, but there was the first cloud version released in 2021, so quite early. But the migration assistant was missing. And these surveys can contain quite important or crucial data for our customers, and the manual migration is cumbersome and tedious work. So when Atlassian announced that they're going to integrate Forge into their migration platform, we immediately started to prepare a roadmap how to integrate our app there as well. And our key milestones for this map we will have a look at. And one of them is the data migration from DC to cloud using the migration platform. Second is the macro conversion, because the legacy macros will no longer work on cloud. So we had to find a way to convert them somewhat in the fancy, shiny cloud macros. Yeah, and last, we also wanted to put everything together such that we can have a seamless process for our customers in their migration journey. So let's start with the first part, the data migration from DC.
Yes, like Lina already said, our starting point for the migration was our app Survey on Data Center. And there we had to tackle different obstacles. The first major question was, how the data is stored on the DC version of our app. And the answer was that the data is stored in a multiplied tables within an SQL database, which is quite different from the key value no SQL-based forge storage in the cloud. So our main goal was to transform this already structured data into a transfer object that we could send to the app migration platform and then fit it into the forge storage in the cloud. And since the data center has more computational power and resources available, we decided to handle as much data preparation as possible on the DC side and have the data almost ready for use in the cloud with minimal processing. However, this presented another key obstacle for us, because data center is a Java application, while cloud is running in a Node environment. So this meant we had to send the objects from Java to the TypeScript and fit them exactly. This was a very critical issue for us, especially because we have quite big and different data. We have survey definitions, responses, permissions, and even anonymous surveys. So that's why we had to look for different situations and what actually to do. And yes, here we are coming to the solution.
So yeah, what we decided in the end to do is to use some code generation to solve this issue, meaning classical code generation, no AI involved in that case. So for those who are not familiar with it, I mean, I guess most of you will know it, but code generation is a software technique that uses predefined models or templates to automatically create code. And the purpose of it is often to reduce manual coding, like that you don't have to do all the boilerplate yourself, and also to ensure consistency. And in particular, this consistency is what we aim for. So we decided to use Open API Generator because that is a tool that we were already familiar with. We use it also in other parts of our code to create clients for our service. What is the setting? On DC, we have some data. First, we wrap it into a data transfer object, in short DTO, which is a Java object that has a certain set of properties that then in the end hold some data. Then we serialize this, send it to the migration platform, fetch it in cloud, and then we want to deserialize it to a TypeScript object that has the same semantics as the Java class. Yeah, and therefore code generation is actually a quite elegant solution because we only have to, maintain one particular file in which we define how our DTOs look, and then the rest gets regenerated. So if you want to add, I don't know, a certain property or so, just add it in here, and the rest is taken care of, and it will always be consistent. So let's have a look here at an example. So on the right side, you can see an excerpt of our Open API specification JSON. So for a response, which is of the type object, and it has a certain set of properties with certain types. So an ID for the response itself, an ID for the survey that it relates to, the submission time, and the response itself. Yeah. And this is the way how we solved it, and actually made use of this flexibility quite often. So we adapted the specifications quite sometimes because we wanted to resemble the cloud data structure. So we had to adapt our strategy multiple times along the way. And in the end, we started with the migration of survey definitions and then incrementally added more stuff like permissions, responses, and so on. So let's now see how we actually send that to cloud.
After we prepared the data, our next step in this adventure was to transfer it to the app migration platform. The platform acts as a bridge between the data center app and the cloud app, and enables seamless communication of the data. But unfortunately, working with the platform wasn't always straightforward, and we encountered some issues. But before diving into the specifics of these challenges, let's take a closer look at how actually the app migration platform operates. So, during the course of a migration, the DC app mainly interact with the app migration platform. As we can see on the diagram, the app migration platform is a third-party service that facilitates the movement of the data. And we can see that there are few important steps. The first one is the app data export. During this step, the DC app sends the data to the app migration platform, and here the app migration platform saves the data into a secure cloud storage. It is important to mention that the app migration platform is event-based, and when receive the data from the DC, it notifies the cloud app while emitting event to it. So the next step is coming from the cloud. It requests and gets the secure cloud storage location, and finally access the data to finish the migration. So, as we can see, the data center app and the cloud app does not communicate between each other. They are using for this purpose the app migration platform. So, after when we prepared our data on the DC side, we implemented a listener called Forge Migration Listener. This listener registers the app with the app migration platform and make the communication between them. And as I mentioned before, while integrating with the app migration platform, we encountered an issue with the Forge migration feature, and this temporarily blocked our process. This issue was in the progress reporting in the app migration platform and was leading to an expired migration. So, we quickly reached out to Atlassian, more specifically to André Rosut, who is, by the way, here now. So, yes, we reached out to him and his team, and in turn, they provided us with a solution that allowed us to continue our migration process. And it is important to tell that this collaboration was good, yes, for our personal problem, but also it helped to improve the migration feature for future use for us and for other vendors as well. And now, after we have explored these challenges with the app migration platform, we can move forward. And as I highlighted earlier, the app migration platform is a third-party service. And during the migration process, it not only interact with the DC app, but also with the cloud app, and emit event to the Forge app. So now we can take a closer look at what is actually happening in the cloud app when this event was emitted.
Yeah, so when an event is emitted from the migration platform to our app gets notified that there is an event with some data that we can process. So what we do is we get that event and we check what data is in there and unwrap it, and then we see, okay, what is inside. In our case, it's, our DTOs, so the definition, permissions, responses, and so on. And then we actually don't have to do that much because we did all the processing already on the server side. So we just can persist it in a Forge storage and we are good to go. Which worked out of the box and was pretty neat. So in the end, then we also had to acknowledge the event from the Atlassian migration platform. If you don't do, it will retry to send that event. So never forget to acknowledge. That part is then done. So we had our data migrated. So let's now go to the second milestone, which is the macro conversion. Don't know whether any of you already tried to migrate DC macro to cloud, but what happens is that after you migrate it, after you migrate a page, it will first be still in the legacy editor, and at that point the macro is already broken. And then you can actually migrate the page to the new editor, and your macro is still maybe even more broken. And at this point is actually where we wanted to migrate then in the new editor the macro to our new Shiny Cloud macro. And before we dive into the details, let's take one step back, because at last Atlas Camp 2023, we were already working on the macro conversion of another app of ours that only needed the macro to convert. And we already had some ideas how to approach the macro conversion, but there were some open questions left. In particular, how to actually tell whether a page was already converted from the legacy editor to the new cloud editor. And actually coming to Atlas Camp helped a lot, because there we again asked Andre Rosat, and he pointed us to some guy who could then tell us that there is indeed a hidden REST endpoint, which we could use to figure out what editor is used. And with that information given, our colleagues were able to develop the first POC for macro conversion at last Atlas Camp, and we released it soon after. So use the opportunity here to ask your questions. In our case, it was really nice and worked out. Yeah, so let's see how the macro conversion actually works.
Yes, for the macro conversion, we could say it was a significant technical challenge, but it was also a very important step to ensure compatibility and functionality of our app in the cloud. As Lina already explained, migrating to the new cloud to the new editor in the cloud revealed a critical issue for us when we realized that the legacy macros were no longer functional. So, to solve this, we implemented a structured process including few steps. First, we fetch the page content as an ADF object, which is Atlassian document format object. Then, we traverse through the page to search for legacy macros associated with our app key. When we identify these macros, we replace them with the new cloud macros, and in the end, we update the page to reflect the changes. But this was our basic process. We also had to account for nested macros, which add some complexity and extend a little bit the process. For this check, we focused on traversing through the child elements, since the parents couldn't be traversed directly. But as a conclusion, we can say that knowing how to handle this huge peak before even started climbing it made this challenge much more manageable for us. And reflecting on the guidance we had from Atlas Camp 2023 to now, we can say we are in one full circle, because we are back here today. And we are back with one table enhancer migration assistant based on macro conversion, and one survey migration assistant based on Forge migration platform. And now is actually the perfect moment to demonstrate you how our survey migration assistant is working. So now we are in the DC version of our app. We have one demo survey with one participant that is still pending and one that has completed the survey. We are logging into this user and we can see the submitted response. Then we are going to the general configuration to actually create the migration. From here, we can choose our cloud site. We can decide what to migrate and what to include in the current migration. We can see that we have one space, 2 users, and 1 app included into this migration. Then we can run the pre-migration checks, and in the end, review the migration to see that everything we want to add is here. Now here we can do the check. Here we can see that our app, multi-vote and enterprise survey is part of the migration, and we can start the migration. If we want, we can see more details about it. And here we can follow the progress. Usually the migration is taking a few minutes to finish. Now, for the demo, it will finish fast. And in the end, when the users, the spaces, and the apps are migrated, we can go to the bottom of the page and to go to the cloud site.
Yeah, so let's now go to the cloud site. This is actually the administration for our migration assistant, and we can see that one page is registered, which is still using the old editor, and the macro is not there, but the data is. So let's go to the page. This is now still the legacy editor, and we have one unknown macro survey display, which apparently is, already not functional anymore. So first thing that we have to do is actually to switch to the new editor, so to convert the page. And afterward we end in the edit mode of the new page, and we can see that the extension is still broken. But now we can update the page, and when you update this page, our auto migration will come into place, and you can see that already on the top that, okay, it's a bit pixeled, but that our macro did update the page indeed in the meantime. So when we now refresh the page, we can see that the macro is properly migrated and that we can have, a full functioning survey. It's looking the same as on DC. We still have the pending and the finished participant. And as we are logged in as the same user who responded, we can still see the user's response. So everything is there and working. And when we go back to the migration assistant overview table, we can also see in there that everything is stated as properly migrated. So new editor, macro, and data, everything's here. Yeah, so let's, in the last few minutes, talk a bit about some tools, pitfalls, and best practices we learned along the way. So let's see what we have for you.
The challenges. Yes, we encountered several key challenges along the way. One of the first challenges was implementing a reliable retry mechanism. Using the retry template, we ensure that if a data transfer failed, the system would automatically retry to send the data from the DC side to the app migration platform. In this case, we can minimize the risk of failed migration and actually maintaining efficiency and data integrity. Another significant problem during our adventure was the Forge storage limit. Some surveys turned out to be too big to fit within the allowed storage capacity of the Forge platform. And this is happening because, as we said, in data center we have much more resources available, and some customers may have huge surveys with a lot of data. So if they try to migrate this kind of survey, it wouldn't be migrated because Forge storage cannot save it. To actually tackle this, we introduced a pre-migration check specifically for the survey size, setting a threshold slightly below the actual Forge limit. In this case, we will notify the customer that they can try to make the survey smaller and then actually migrate with one single try. And finally, robust error handling was also important. We want to notify our customers before they try to migrate, just because we want to give them really nice flow to our migration assistant and migrate only with single try. It is important also to mention that the cloud app is listening for webhook error event, and if something happened and the data transfer failed, the cloud app will be notified and will receive this error event. This event includes data for the exception, and it's making the stuff easier to debug what is the problem.
And now a quick look at the best practices. So we want to emphasize again the importance of collaboration, in particular with Atlassian, because we reached out several times and were provided with some help, tips, and also with a fix if needed. Second, we want to mention idempotency. So it may be that customers want to migrate multiple times, like first they do a test migration, then they do proper migration or so. And you have to ensure that the data gets migrated properly and that you have a clean state in the end. So everything is overwritten. Yeah? You don't have some leftovers or so. And this worked mostly out of the box, but there were some edge cases that were a bit tricky, in particular if the user mapping was changed in between because our responses are linked to users. So we had to come up with a special solution for that case, but we managed it. So if you want to implement your own migration assistant, keep this in mind that if you want to do it multiple times with different data, it should still work. Yeah, we also did some pre-migration checks. Mira already explained which one for the too large survey, but that's currently the only one we do, but we are already thinking about other ones that we would like to add. And yeah, also documentation. We did a lot of documentation for our customers, like a full step-by-step walkthrough through a migration, a big troubleshooting section where customers could see how can I solve it if my survey is too large, what if an unexpected error occurs, stuff like that, which can be very helpful for customers to migrate. Yeah, and last, continuous improvement. Maybe start with the low-hanging fruits. Yeah, we started to create an MVP. And it was working, and then incrementally we improved it. Yeah, so we added the pre-migration check, for example, was one of the last things that we added before we released it, because, yeah, for the original MVP, it's not so important, but in the end, we added it, and it was nice. And yeah, even now we are still working on it to make it better. Yeah, and maybe a few things that are not on the slide, but also testing. We have one full end-to-end test cycle that we do to ensure that everything is working properly. And also like tweaking a bit around with the sizes of the files of the event that you sent, like how many objects to actually include there. Because the Forge limits also have a limit how many write, update, and delete operations you can do, and you should better not exceed that limit. So please don't migrate all your data in a single file. Yeah, but find a sweet spot as it works out well. Yeah.
And now the last big question, what's next? Of course, our journey doesn't end here. This was only the first part of our adventure, and this is because, as Lina explained in the beginning of this talk, Enterprise Survey is actually the half of our app, and the next step on the horizon is to migrate multi-vote as well. And of course, we have a lot of apps in our portfolio which are waiting to be migrated, and we are planning to continue work on those topics and migrate all of them step by step and challenge by challenge. And as we are now moving forward, we are asking ourselves some important questions, right? Like, did we miss anything during this migration? Or how our migration assistant will perform in large-scale migrations. And even, are there additional pre-migration checks we could add? And yes, to some of those questions, we already have the answers. For example, we know we will implement more additional pre-migration checks. But for some of these questions, we still search for the answers, and we are waiting to receive feedback from our customers to further refine and improve our migration process, not only for this app, but also for all of the other apps as well. And actually, this concludes our presentation on the journey of our migration assistant. Thank you for that. You took a part from our journey.